Hello friends, this is Brinda. Welcome back to Brinda and Bitu Vlogs. Today I'm going to explain you about biology, the chapter called as Human Circulatory System. In this chapter, let us see about the blood vessels. There are three types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Artery An artery is a blood vessel which carries blood away from the heart towards any organ. Here, an artery has a thick muscular layer. It has narrow lumen, space or cavity inside the vessel. Inside the artery, the blood flows with spurts, not uniform. Spurts means not at all uniform. Each spurt corresponds to ventricular systole contraction. Each ventricular systole throws some amount of blood into the aorta. Aorta is the largest artery. So, what is aorta? Aorta is the largest artery in our whole body. Aorta is the largest artery. Now, let us come to vein. Vein is a blood vessel which conveys blood away from any organ towards the heart. It has thin muscular layer. It has wide lumen. It contains thin pocket-shaped valves. These valves are used for preventing the backward flow of blood. This is an LS of the arteries. This is an artery. They have thick muscular wall and a narrow lumen. This is a vein, and it has thin muscular wall, and this is an outer connective tissue and a wider lumen. Now let us come to the capillaries. The very fine branches of the arteries are known as arteriole. So from aorta it branches into arteries, and arteries branches into arterioles. The arterioles break up into narrow microscopic blood vessels called as capillaries. This capillary wall is very thin and is made up of a single layer of epithelium known as endothelium. The functions of capillaries are: it allows the outward diffusion of oxygen from the capillaries into the cell. It allows the inward diffusion of carbon dioxide from the cell into the capillaries. It allows the inward and outward diffusion of substances like glucose, amino acids, urea, hormones, etc. It allows diapedesis through its wall. Vasodilation and vasoconstriction for regulating the body temperature. So, what is this vasodilation? So, when you are in the summer temperature, in summers, when you go out, so that time you experience a lot of heat. So, when you walk in the hot sun, heat makes the capillaries dilate. Dilate means they go very far away, they create a lot of space. The space between these capillaries, there's a lot of space. So this helps to radiate heat outside. Thus regulates our body temperature. Vasoconstriction: when you go out in the cold climate, the capillaries constrict. The flow of blood inside the capillaries reduces. This prevents heat radiation, thus keeps our body warm. This is how it dilates, and this is how it constricts. This is so less, and this is, see the space, so that the more blood flows in. Let us come back. So vasodilation and vasoconstriction I explained you. The structure of human heart. Heart is located in the thoracic cavity, right in the center between two lungs. It is a muscular organ made of cardiac muscles. In an adult human, the size of the heart is about the size of a closed fist. So in adults, this is a closed fist. So this much is their heart. Heart is enclosed by a double membranous structure called pericardium. The space between the pericardium membranes is filled with a fluid called pericardial fluid. The pericardial fluid between the pericardial membranes reduces the friction during the heartbeat. It also protects the heart from mechanical injuries or mechanical shocks also. The heart consists of 4 chambers. The upper 2 chambers are called atria or auricles. The right atrium and the left atrium. The right atrium and left atrium are separated by interauricular septum. The lower two chambers are called ventricles, right ventricle and left ventricle. The right and left ventricle are separated by interventricular septum. Okay, this is divided by septum. The auricles are known as receiving chambers and the ventricles are known as pumping chambers. The auricles have thinner muscular wall than that of ventricles because the main function of the auricles is to receive blood from different parts of the body. Their minor function is to pump blood to the ventricle. The ventricles have thicker muscular wall than that of auricles because their main function is to pump blood to different parts of the body. Minor function is to receive blood from the atria. The left ventricle pumps blood to different parts of the body. The left ventricle has to exert more pressure to pump blood to different parts of the body which can be far away to the heart. So it has thicker muscular wall than that of the right ventricle, whereas the right ventricle has to pump blood only to the lungs, for the oxidation of the blood. The valves which regulate the flow of blood in the heart. The right auricle opens into the right ventricle. This opening is guarded by tricuspid valve. It prevents the backward flow of blood from the right ventricle into the right atrium. The opening between the right auricle and the right ventricle is guarded by many valves. So one valve is bicuspid valve. It prevents the backward flow of blood from the left ventricle to the left auricle. These valves are held in position. The right ventricle pumps deoxygenated blood into the lungs for oxygenation through pulmonary artery. The flow of blood from the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery is guarded by the pulmonary semilunar valve, which is located at the opening of the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery. It prevents the backward flow of blood from the pulmonary artery into the right ventricle. From the left ventricle arises the largest artery called aorta. Aorta branches and rebranches and carry oxygenated blood from left ventricle to all parts of the body. The aortic semilunar valve. It is located at the opening of the left ventricle into the aorta. It prevents the backward flow of blood from the aorta to the left ventricle. There is an immediate branch of aorta called coronary artery which branches and rebranches and transport oxygenated blood from aorta to heart muscles. The right auricle receives deoxygenated blood from different parts of the body through two main or large blood vessels called as. Let us study about vena cava. Superior vena cava, or it is also called as anterior vena cava. Inferior vena cava or posterior vena cava. The superior vena cava brings deoxygenated blood from the anterior parts like upper parts. Now about the diaphragm, the upper parts like brain, chest, arms, towards our right atrium. So let me just show you. But first let us finish this superior vena cava and posterior vena cava. The posterior vena cava brings deoxygenated blood from the posterior parts, lower parts below the diaphragm such as legs, abdomen, etc. towards the right atrium. The left auricle receives 4 pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atrium. The right chambers of the heart, right atrium and right ventricle always consist of deoxygenated blood. The left chambers of the heart, left atrium and left ventricle always consist of oxygenated blood. Now let me tell you the circulation of blood, but before that let me also show you the diagram of heart. This is consisting of the pulmonary vein, consists of oxygenated blood with 4 veins. So all the 4 veins get into the left auricle. This is the superior vena cava or anterior vena cava, and this is the posterior vena cava and or inferior vena cava. This is the pulmonary artery. So this is the right auricle and this is the left auricle, and this is the left ventricle and this is the right ventricle. So right ventricle gives into the blood into the pulmonary artery, and this left ventricle gives the blood into the aorta. Aorta branches and rebranches. So this is called as artery. This is called as arteriole, and these are called as capillaries. They are also called as capillaries, also called as arterial capillaries. These are the functions of the posterior vena cava. In anterior vena cava, pulmonary veins, aorta, pulmonary artery. After this, see the pulmonary artery. And artery, what is it? It transports blood from heart to different parts of the body. Coronary artery, bronchial artery, renal artery. So first you have to identify any artery. If any artery is also given, first you have to mention it as a branch of aorta carrying oxygenated blood or transports blood from aorta to the heart muscles. Don't write left ventricle. This is not accepted by the ICSE syllabus. Only heart muscles is accepted by the ICSE syllabus. Bronchial artery, it transports oxygenated blood. First you have to mention it as a branch of aorta, carries oxygenated blood and transports this oxygenated blood from the aorta to the lungs. And this is from the aorta towards the kidneys, but make sure you write the definition properly. So the aperture, what is this? Tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve, and the main function. This tricuspid valves are meant for preventing the backflow of blood. So the aperture between the right atrium and the right ventricle is the tricuspid valve, and the aperture between the left atrium and the left ventricle is bicuspid valve. Okay, you can make sure you write these questions what I shared to you. Okay, so this is the circulation. I may write it. Circulation of blood. So from the right atrium, the blood flows into the right ventricle. From the left atrium, the oxygenated blood flows to the left ventricle. The blood from the left ventricle flows from the aorta towards all the body parts and towards the artery also. Towards the body parts. Then from the body parts, the veins, the vena cava, and it gets connected towards the right atrium. Make sure you keep the arrow marks. Okay. And then from the right atrium, so the blood is received the deoxygenated blood. From the right atrium, it flows into the right ventricle and through the pulmonary artery towards the lungs. Do this. So one circulation from the left atrium towards the right atrium is called as systemic circulation. And the second circulation from the right atrium to the right ventricle and then towards the lung and then to the left atrium, it is called as pulmonary circulation. Knowing about our body is very interesting, you know. Okay, now let us see. When these auricles contract, blood flows from the auricles to the ventricles. When the ventricles contract, the blood flows from the ventricles to the auricles. And let me tell you the essay note. What is this SNO's function? It initiates and maintains it is a specialized cardiac muscle which initiates and maintains the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the heart muscles. It is located at the upper right corner of the right atrium. So here it is the upper right corner. Over here it is located this pacemaker or sinoatrial node or SA node. SA node. So let me just tell you, auricular systole is 0.5 seconds. The ventricular diastole is 0.30 seconds and the joint diastole is 0.40 seconds. Okay. Then I have this what is pulse and what are those. But first let me explain you what the circulation of blood. The blood from different parts of the body is received in the right atrium. Simultaneously, the oxygenated blood from the lungs is received into the left auricle. Circulation starts with the contraction of the two auricles at the same time. Ventricles are in a relaxed condition. When the auricles contract, the pressure increases and the blood is forced into the pulmonary artery from the right ventricle and into the aorta from the left ventricle. A specialized cardiac tissue which is located at the upper right corner of the right atrium known as sinoatrial node or SA node. I told you it initiates and maintains the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the heart muscles. This is also known as pacemaker. The person who doesn't have this is he has the artificial pacemaker. This artificial pacemaker is the same like the natural pacemaker, but it is artificially in his. It's not real pacemaker, but it functions same like a real pacemaker. Now let me tell you what is this cardiac cycle. Each heartbeat consists of two main steps. The atria contracts first, followed by the contraction of the ventricles. The contraction phase of the chambers of the heart is called as systole, which is followed by the relaxing phase of the chambers of the heart called as diastole. So during the heartbeat, the atrial systole, the auricular systole, I told you it is 0.15 seconds, and it is followed by the ventricular systole, it is 0.30 seconds. For a short period of time, both the atria and ventricles are in a relaxed state. Joint systole is for 0.40 seconds. All these phases occur in a rhythmic manner and one after the other. The whole sequence of events is the heartbeat. 0.85 seconds, it is called as the cardiac cycle. If you add 15 plus 30 plus 45, you will get 40 seconds. You will get 0.85 seconds. Pulse. What is pulse? Let me just show you one thing. You have your any right or left hand. You see, if you just feel it, you feel the pulse. In the left hand, you feel your pulse. In your right hand, you feel your artery. Here is only one artery which is not deeply located in our body, in the right over here. Okay, so let us see what is pulse. It is the alternate expansion and elastic recoil of the muscular walls of the arteries during the ventricular systole. Counting pulse is indirectly counting your heartbeat. Normal pulse rate in an adult is 72 times per minute. So even heartbeat is also 72 times in 1 minute it sounds. Now, you know the sound of heart? Lubbed up, lubbed up, lubbed up. What is the significance of this lubbed up? So as I told you, let me show you this heart. So see here, there's a valve between this right atrium and right ventricle and left atrium and left ventricle. And the pulmonary artery and right ventricle and aorta and left ventricle. So when blood flows, when atria contract, blood from the atriums flow into the ventricles. So when that blood flows from the atria into the ventricles, and then the valves, the tricuspid valve and the bicuspid valve, I told you the valves which are present between the right atrium and the left atrium and the right ventricle and left atrium and the left ventricle. The tricuspid valve close, the bicuspid valve close at the once. So that is only lub sound. The lub sound is due to that one. What is this dup? Dup. When this blood flows from the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery and from the left ventricle into the aorta, the ventriculars contract. Then the auricles will be in a diastolic position. So the blood flows into the pulmonary artery and aorta. That time the valves, aortic semilunar valve and pulmonary semilunar valve, they close. They close each other. So that is only the sound of dup. Okay. This dup is during the ventricular diastole. This is the lup is during the ventricular systole. Okay. Now I told you this is the circulation. You can see the image. And always these are the main parts which should be mentioned. Next, let me come to the double circulation diagram. This is a double circulation. Why is our circulation called as double circulation? Because blood enters twice into the heart to complete one circulation. To complete one circulation, the blood enters in twice. It is a characteristic feature of mammals. It helps to keep the oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood separate. To this septum, the oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood is separated completely through this septum between them. This is the heart. It is a 4-chambered heart. And see the blood flowing into the aorta and pulmonary artery. You have to mention the posterior vena cava and superior vena cava lungs. See the flow of blood. Okay. Now, I told you what is this pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. Okay. Now let us see about the hepatic portal system. Let me show you. So, this blood, the deoxygenated blood, from the stomach and small intestine, from the capillaries, they form into arterioles. These arteries, they are veins now. They are veins now. From the capillaries, they form name because they consist of deoxygenated blood. So these veins, let me show a closer view so that you can see it. From the stomach and small intestine, the capillaries are moving as from the veins, and this is called as hepatic portal vein, and it is going into the liver. Why first into the liver? Because this stomach and small intestine has many absorbed nutrients, hormones and all those. So those absorbed nutrients and hormones, if they go directly into the vena cava and go to the right atrium, it is no of use now. So the blood will contains, so only this, the nutrients will go to the liver and the glucose will be stored in the form of glycogen and other parts and the fat, all those will be stored. This is only the significance of this hepatic portal system. So next it will go to liver. Again these form from the capillaries. Again from the capillaries they form veins, and this hepatic vein connects into the what? To the vein, vena cava, the main vein, vena cava, and it to the right atrium. Now let us see what is this lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid. It's not like RBC, it's colorful, reddish, but it's colorless. You can write it down. Now let us see what are the functions. It provides immunity as it contains certain WBCs, lymphocytes and monocytes, helps in the diffusion of nutrients, excretory products, respiratory gases. The lymph vessels present inside the intestinal villi called lacteal help in the absorption of the digested fat. Now what is this blood groups? What are these blood groups? Carol Steiner in 1900, he discovered these blood groups. Based on the presence or absence of the antigen, antigen is a protein present on the surface of the RBCs. So antigen A and antigen B. So antigen A is a complementary of antibody B. So this is for antigen A and antibody A will be for antigen B. So just see this table. You will get to know. Blood group A will have antigen A, antibody B. Blood group B will have antigen B, antibody A. Blood group AB will have antigen A and B and antibody nothing. It doesn't have any antibodies. Blood group O will have will have no antigens, but the antibody is A and B. So this O is having full. It is ready with antibodies. Okay, so it is called as ABO blood group. So receiving blood, the person who receives the blood is called as recipient, and the donating the blood who is called as a donor. Here, once see here. A person who is having a blood group A will receive blood from A only or from O, because or else if it receives from a person B, these antigen and antibody AA will fight. They will collide and fight each other. But B will also, it can receive from a person with A, and also with a person from O. This B can receive from the B and also from O. AB can receive from A, B and O because it doesn't have any antibodies to fight with. It doesn't want to fight with anybody now. So it can receive blood from everyone. O, it can't receive blood from anybody, nothing. It have to receive blood from only. So but it can give to everybody. So only it's called as universal donor. O is called as universal donor and AB is called as universal recipient. Now let us see about the RH factor. This is the blood transfusion from the from the donor to the recipient. What is this RH factor? RH factor is a protein which is found on the outer surface of RBCs or red blood cells who have this factor. The people who have this factor in the blood is called as RH factor positive, and these people who do not have this RH factor is called as RH factor negative. See this. Just read it. You can write it down. And then these are the heart attack, the diseases which are related to keep our heart. Heart attack or myocardial infarction, or it is also called as heart attack. Next, let me see about the cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest also, it is very fully, it's not like first heart attack comes, then it leads to cardiac arrest. Okay, hope you like my video. Like, share and subscribe.